My husband betrayed me by having an affair with my son's 18-year-old girlfriend, and when I started digging deeper, I was absolutely shocked to uncover a web of his deception, lies, and countless other dirty secrets I never knew existed. I'm using pseudonyms throughout this story. I'm a 41-year-old stay-at-home mom, and my husband, whom I'll call Paul, is 48 and works in finance. We've been married nearly 20 years, and we have 2 children, Eric, our 18-year-old son who's in his senior year of high school, and Mary, our 15-year-old daughter. They are both the center of my world. Over the years, my marriage with Paul has grown somewhat stagnant due to a number of issues, like his hectic work schedule and how much I've changed since we first met. Our son Eric has been dating a girl, Amy, since they were freshmen, and he absolutely adores her. I've always seen Amy as part of our family, which makes everything that happened even more painful. Last week, I accidentally caught a glimpse of Paul's phone screen and saw a text conversation between him and Amy. I read a message that looked like Amy saying she misses eating his sausage. I froze in disbelief. For most of that day, I tried to convince myself that I was mistaken. But I soon discovered a folder on his computer filled with BDSM content that confirmed his porn addiction. I even found photos of Amy from her Instagram saved on his computer. They were innocent pictures, just Amy in her regular clothes, but they were enough for me to know I wasn't imagining things. I began to notice more evidence whenever I got the chance to glance at his phone. He was always on it, sometimes leaving apps open without thinking. One day, while he was closing out his apps, a habit he does unconsciously, I saw that iMessage was still active, revealing more messages between him and Amy. Seeing those messages felt like a punch in the gut. I remember sitting there, my hands trembling as I held his phone. The screen lit up with words that felt like stabs in my heart. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way they mocked me. Paul took my personal insecurities, the very things I trusted him with, and turned them into cruel jokes for Amy's amusement. They constantly compared me to her, calling me fat, old, and uninteresting. In one exchange, Paul wrote, "Can you believe she tried on that dress last night? It looked like a sausage bursting out of its casing." Amy replied with laughing emojis and added, "She's so old, she probably thinks that's in style." Their comments weren't limited to my appearance. They derided my intelligence, my interests, and even the way I speak. Words like boring, dull, and predictable were used to describe the life I built with him over nearly 2 decades. Each message chipped away at the love and respect I once believed we shared. At one point, Paul wrote, "At least you're fun. Being with her is like living in slow motion." Amy retorted, "LOL, you need someone who can keep up with you, not slow you down." It felt like I was nothing more than an obstacle for them to laugh about, a constant reminder of what they considered unworthy. As I sat there, every message made me feel smaller, almost invisible. These weren't just careless words, they were a window into how little I meant to the person who was supposed to love me most. Amy, a young woman I once mentored, was now laughing along with him as they ridiculed me. Their betrayal cut deep, and I couldn't help but wonder how many times they'd shared a laugh at my expense, how many times my pain had been a source of their amusement. After closing the app, I looked at our family photos hanging on the wall. The stark contrast between the smiling faces in those pictures and the cruel messages on the screen was overwhelming. In that moment, surrounded by the echoes of their laughter, I realized that the man I married was not the same person captured in those photos. I began to wonder how many times he had secretly mocked me and how often my suffering had been nothing more than a punchline. I'd long had suspicions that Paul was unfaithful, but I never imagined anything like this. Just last month, I found a thong in our bedroom that wasn't mine or my daughter's. I naively dismissed it as possibly belonging to our daughter, even though it made no sense. Now I know that not only was he cheating on me, but he was also betraying our son. I am completely devastated. I can't even put into words the shock, anger, and dread that I feel. I'm overwhelmed by how to handle this, especially because I'm terrified of the impact it could have on Eric's young, impressionable heart. I haven't confronted Paul because I'm scared of the fallout. I don't know who to turn to, which is why I'm sharing my story, not for sympathy, but to seek understanding and advice from anyone who has faced a similar betrayal. I'm sorry if I haven't been able to reply to private messages, and I truly appreciate the support. Thank you for listening. I'll get to it when I can. Right now, I'm juggling a lot and taking many necessary steps. I'm trying to be smart and strategic in this surreal, awful situation. I want to make it clear, not telling my son about this was never an option. I didn't mean to give that impression, I was just saying that the thought of telling him fills me with dread. Of course, it must be addressed, it's just one part of my larger plan. I'm pretending not to know while gathering evidence so that I'm ready for anything. I'm going to protect myself and make sure I never end up in harm's way. I'll share a more detailed update soon, but please know that every one of you has touched my heart and made me feel less alone. Update 1. My brother hooked me up with a tough, no-nonsense lawyer. I saved screenshots of his chats with Amy. I could only recover the last 3 months from iCloud. Most of the messages were flirty and explicit, they were hard to swallow and downright sleazy. I noticed several negative comments about me. His call history showed that he talked with her for hours nearly every day, and he's also active on dating apps. I captured screenshots of his profiles and every active chat with his matches. It's obvious he uses filters to find girls in their late teens to early 20s. I even copied all his computer files. He frequents sex chat rooms and forums, and he spends a ton on OnlyFans. I searched every possible hiding spot in the house. He had various toys, blindfolds, cuffs, lubricants, etc., and even different outfits, including one that looked like a Catholic school uniform and another resembling a French-made costume. I picked up Eric and Mary from school, and we drove to my brother's place. They sensed something was off as soon as I picked them up. I gently explained the whole situation and ended up breaking down in tears. Mary was angrier than Eric. Later, I met with Amy's mother and told her everything. She confiscated Amy's phone and handed over the complete chat log, which, like my husband's iCloud copy, only went back 3 months, as if both had deleted the older messages simultaneously. According to her, Amy cried when confronted and told her that she'd never understand, insisting that she and he were in love. I won't go into all the details, but it seems my husband gradually became a sage-like figure in her life, a man she depended on because of her broken home. Amy keeps insisting that the relationship only turned romantic and physical recently, claiming that before that he was just a friend and mentor. I confronted Paul over Zoom. The moment I joined the call, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely hold the mouse. As soon as his face filled the screen, I knew the conversation wouldn't be calm. His face was flushed, his hair was a mess, as if he'd been running his hands through it all morning, and his eyes were wild, darting around until they fixed on the camera. His expression was frightening, red, sweaty, angry, and panicked. I tried to keep my voice steady and said, "Paul, we need to talk about what's been going on." But before I could say more, he interrupted with, "Context, you don't understand the context," repeating the word like a mantra. His hands trembled as he clutched a stack of papers on his desk. I said, "I've seen the messages between you and Amy." I tried to sound calm, hoping to keep him composed, but it felt like I had lit a fuse. None of that happened. "You're making things up," he shouted, his face deepening to a shade of red, his voice so loud I had to pull my laptop away. It was terrifying to see him so unhinged, not the man I thought I knew. I pleaded, "Paul, I have screenshots, I've seen everything. We need to figure out how to handle this with the kids." He slammed his fist on the desk, shaking the camera, and shouted, "You have no right to take my kids away. You're trying to ruin everything." Every word hit like a verbal assault. My hands trembled as I said, "Paul, please calm down. We need to find a way," but he growled, "I don't need to calm down. You're the one overreacting, destroying our family." His face was so close to the camera that I could see beads of sweat on his forehead. It was then that real fear set in. His intense eyes and aggressive tone showed a man on the brink of losing control. I realized I wasn't just dealing with infidelity, but with someone who could become dangerous to me and the kids. He kept yelling context over and over, his speech stuttering with intensity. Nothing made sense. I refused to reveal my location, and he insisted I had no right to take his kids. "I'm ending this call, Paul. We'll talk when you can be calm," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You can't just hang up on me," he protested, but I didn't wait for more. I ended the call. My heart pounded as I stared at the blank screen, knowing this was far more serious than I'd thought. His reaction wasn't just defensive, it was volatile. I immediately called my lawyer to request a restraining order. The level of aggression was enough proof that I needed to protect myself and the kids. That call, meant to confront and seek truth, turned into a chilling revelation of Paul's deep anger and instability. It became clear that this wasn't just about heartbreak or betrayal, it was about safety. My lawyer is now filing for temporary sole custody of Mary and a restraining order. Mary is furious with her dad, rightfully so, replaying moments when she saw him with her friends, leaving her in knots. Eric is clearly hurting, but he's strong and level-headed enough to want therapy. The maturity my kids are showing makes me proud. They don't deserve any of this. Eric hasn't spoken to Amy since finding out, and I'm not sure he ever will again. Both he and I will be tested and checked out because there's no way to know how many women he's been involved with. As for Amy, her mom has been in contact with me, and Amy Paul has been threatening to elope with him because they claim to be in love, so we alerted the authorities about everything. I'm determined to be utterly unforgiving and ruthless in this divorce. I keep reflecting on how I've been treated, how I've become a shell of myself, and how his actions have led me to have such a negative view of who I am over the past 20 years. I refuse to let this scumbag get away with it. I'm ready to reinvent myself and move on stronger than ever. Update 2. Thank you again for all the love and encouragement. It brings me comfort and means the world to me. I've received many comments and messages accusing me of faking this story, which strangely also gives me a sense of comfort because everything feels unreal, even to me. It confirms my own feelings that some people can't even imagine this being true, though I wish it were all a lie. I've been so focused on and worried about others' feelings over this that I've somewhat ignored my own, and I'm now working to change that. My emotions flip from anger to numbness like a light switch. We're all safe now, staying at my brother's house where we're being extra cautious. His home is secured with an alarm system and deadbolt locks. Paul has tried calling my cell several times a day, but I'm refusing to interact with him. I've told my lawyer to handle all communication. Frankly, he scares me. Both my son and I have been tested, and so far, the immediate rapid tests indicate we're clean. We'll know for sure once the lab results come in, but I'm not overly worried. We've also set up a therapy appointment for him next week, which is a relief because he really needs someone professional to help him navigate this maze of hurt and betrayal. It's not just the betrayal itself, it's also about who's behind it: his father, someone he looked up to, and Amy, who was practically part of our family. That's a lot for anyone, let alone an 18-year-old, to process. He's not himself right now. He seemed shell-shocked, and I'm worried he internalizes so much that it's hard to read his mind. Despite his own turmoil, Eric's concern for me has been almost heartbreaking. He often asks, "How are you holding up, Mom?" in a surprisingly mature voice that shows he's trying to shoulder some of my burden. But I can see it's wearing him down. Every now and then, I catch that look in his eyes, a mix of sadness and determination that no child should have to carry for a parent. He's not interested in speaking with his dad at all. He only calls my cell. He hasn't reached out to Eric or Mary, which is both a relief and a deep cut. It's as if, with everything now out in the open, he doesn't know how to face them or simply chooses not to. Eric doesn't seem keen on reaching out either. When I mentioned his dad the other day, there was a brief flash of anger or pain in his eyes before he quickly masked it with neutrality. "I don't have anything to say to him right now," he said, and that was that. I get the sense that Paul is extremely nervous and scared, and deep down, he probably knows that if this is investigated thoroughly, he'll be in serious trouble. That's what my gut is telling me. I still think about our Zoom call, and the more I do, the more it seems like his entire world was crashing down on him. The panic on his face was unmistakable. I even suggested to Mary that she make an appointment with a therapist, but she isn't ready yet. She said she might consider it eventually but needs time to herself. She's been asking her friends about her dad and whether they ever felt any creepiness from him. Her friends were honest, and apparently, they said he stared a lot and always seemed to be hovering around. One of Mary's friends even mentioned feeling like he was checking her out, commenting on the color of her yoga pants at the time. No one said anything back then, but now, in light of everything, it seems odd that he would position himself in different spots to get a good view of her. She also mentioned that he asked questions about what kind of friend group or clique they belonged to at school, specifically if they were popular girls. I'm completely embarrassed that they had to experience this in our home. As for updates on Amy, the main reason I wanted to share this update, I fully agree that she is also a victim. Many people have been emphasizing this, and I agree. I've done everything in my power to indirectly help her get the support she needs. I told her mother, and she's been updating me on Amy's situation. Unfortunately, Amy is still trapped in her own distorted reality, and I can only pray that she'll eventually come to her senses. She refuses to see any doctors or therapists, and she's been constantly trying to reach Paul because she still believes they're in love. From what I've heard, she hasn't been able to get hold of him because he's been avoiding any communication. Amy blames me for that, insisting that I took away his devices and that I'm too controlling. Any truth her mother tries to share is met with conspiracy theories and hostility. Amy sees me as the villain and still views Paul through rose-colored glasses. Her mother even showed her screenshots of his dating app profiles and matches, but Amy refuses to believe them, claiming I photoshopped the images. She keeps saying that everyone's just mad because she found herself a real man and that I'm jealous since she takes better care of him than I do. This mirrors some conversations I've saved where Paul complains about things I supposedly don't do for him sexually. Despite everything, she's convinced that she and Paul will be together in the long run. Honestly, he's a slimeball. I suspect that some of these issues started before she turned 18. I'm not sure exactly when things became physically or romantically inappropriate, but I do believe his grooming began as soon as she entered the picture. When Eric started dating her freshman year, this mentor and friend figure that Amy mentioned had to step in immediately. The way she's acting now, so indebted and willing to believe every word he says, shows that his influence on her must have been long-standing. She only turned 18 about 5 months ago, yet her behavior and infatuation with him seemed too intense to be just from a 5-month relationship. The only hope we have is that Amy will eventually have an epiphany about her situation and openly share when it all began. But since she's 18 and unwilling to do or say anything that could potentially get Paul in legal trouble, we're at an impasse. Unless they discover other girls I haven't even heard about, I can only hope that Amy eventually sees things clearly. Intervening directly doesn't seem like the best move right now, maybe later. Update April 8, 2024, the support I've received has been amazing, and I'm truly grateful. Unfortunately, I've also been hit with a lot of negative, accusatory, and harassing private messages from folks who think I'm making this up. Someone commented on a post, claiming my story had been debunked, and now there are people accusing me of fabricating everything for money. I'm not asking for money at all. My decision to share came purely from emotional desperation, and I never expected so many people to care about my story. I don't expect anything in return, and I have no reason to lie or benefit from this. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but please, don't cross the line with mean-spirited or accusatory private messages. The only reason I keep posting is because of those who have sent love and support. That encouragement has truly lifted my spirits. As for the divorce, it's well underway. I won't go into details because everything is still unfolding, and I want to ensure nothing jeopardizes the process. I've been granted temporary custody of Mary, and Paul is currently responsible for temporary child support. There's also a protective order in place. Paul isn't allowed to contact us or come near us. Right now, our focus is solely on navigating this legal mess without compromising the proceedings. However, I am confident that beyond the divorce, there is overwhelming evidence against Paul that will bring him serious consequences for a long time. I hope to share more details eventually. I understand many of you are worried about his predatory behavior, and while I have to be vague now, know that justice will come. Your concern about how my kids are coping emotionally means a lot to me. Eric has attended therapy twice in the past 2 weeks. I know some people thought I was brushing off his pain, but I understand he's hurting inside, and we're doing everything possible to show him he's supported and loved. My brother has been wonderful, spending time with both Eric and Mary, and they've opened up to him about many things. He and his wife, who enjoy a very healthy marriage, have truly stepped up for our family. Mary hasn't seen a therapist yet, but she promises to consider it soon. I've noticed her anger turning into sadness, and I hope she'll eventually reach out for professional help. Her friends have also played a significant role during all of this, which has been a struggle for her to accept. I know many of you are also concerned about Amy. There have been questions about whether Eric and Amy still see each other at school. Although it might have sounded like they attend the same school, they don't. Eric and Amy went to the same junior high, so they knew each other back then, but Amy later attended an all-girls Catholic high school, while Eric and Mary remained in the public school system. We all grew up in the same town, and it was during the summer before freshman year that Eric and Amy reconnected and started dating. I wish I had better news about Amy, but unfortunately, her situation has worsened since my last update. After everything exploded, Paul started seeing Amy, even though her mother has been trying to stop her from doing so. Amy tells me she's 18 and an adult who can make her own choices, but her mother confided in me just yesterday, her voice full of frustration and worry, that Amy's insistence on her independence is putting her in a difficult spot. Her mother is desperate. If she kicks Amy out for defying her, which I believe is a mistake, Amy might end up staying with Paul permanently. Over the past week, Amy has been spending more time with Paul. Despite him ghosting her when all this first hit, there were days when Amy would be gone for hours. Her mother tried grounding her, taking away her car keys, and even limiting her phone use, yet Amy always finds a way around these restrictions. She's even been sneaking out at night. Her mother told me, her voice breaking, that she woke up at 3 a.m. to find Amy's room empty. Amy won't say where she's been, but I'm convinced it's with him. I can't help but feel both angry and heartbroken for Amy. She's stuck in a toxic cycle, believing she's in a real relationship when it's obvious she's being used. Paul hasn't changed his behavior at all, only his target has shifted. The worst part is feeling completely helpless about the situation. I've suggested therapy and talked about getting professional help for her, but Amy is stubborn, blinded by what she thinks is love. It's both heartbreaking and infuriating. There's only so much I can do about Amy right now, but I still believe things will change soon, especially given what I know about Paul and what's coming. I can only pray that Amy finds the help and guidance she needs. When more chaos comes, I'm focusing on my own kids and my own mental health. Amy's mom knows she has my support, and that's really all I can offer at this point. In the months that followed, life slowly began to find a new rhythm. The legal proceedings reached a turning point. My divorce was finalized with all the necessary protections in place, and the court's decisions granted my children and me a sense of security that had long been absent. The protective order was upheld, and Paul faced legal repercussions for his actions, marking a turning point in his abusive behavior. During this time, the progress in my personal life also reflected in the well-being of my kids. Eric continued with his therapy, gradually opening up about his inner struggles, and with the support of our family and his newfound professional guidance, he began to heal. Mary, too, found solace through counseling, where she learned to transform her sadness into strength. Their resilience reminded me that while our journey had been painful, every step toward healing was worth the effort. As for Amy, her path was more complex and winding. After a period of intense conflict, her mother finally sought help for her as well, and Amy reluctantly agreed to attend counseling. Slowly, with guidance from a compassionate therapist and the unwavering support of those who cared about her, Amy began to see the reality of her situation. The cycle of deception and manipulation started to unravel, and she began to forge her own path, one where she could distinguish between what she thought was love and what truly nurtured her well-being. In time, the storm that had so drastically altered our lives began to clear. My children and I learned to rebuild our trust in each other and in ourselves. The dark chapter that had once threatened to define our future was replaced by small, hopeful moments, a family dinner where laughter echoed, a therapy session that ended in a genuine smile, and the gradual mending of relationships that once seemed irreparable. The resolution wasn't a dramatic end to our struggles, but rather the steady return of peace and self-respect. We each discovered that the true resolution came from facing our pain head-on, accepting help, and learning that even in the aftermath of betrayal and hurt, we had the strength to heal and move forward. And so, as we stepped into a quieter, more hopeful chapter, we did so together, bound by our past but driven by the promise of a better tomorrow.